Be a good human, not just a headline in your mind. Go beyond the hustle, where your real reasons hide.
I want to jump in and start a conversation with you today about HOAs, about you learning the process with board meetings, how to present, and working with engineers on large-scale projects.
Well, I think the first large-scale project I started with was in Madison. And it was kind of funny how we jumped into it. I've never done large scale projects. I've always done residential and things like that. And I had the opportunity one time. I got a phone call to come out and give an estimate or give a bid on a large scale project. So I went out there and I took a look at this project, and it was in Madison, and there was a lot of damage to it. There was a lot of storm damage from the hailstorm that came through, and they wanted an estimate because they had their insurance company come out. And their insurance company lowballed them. They gave them I think it was on 39 buildings, they gave them like $40,000 total on 39 buildings. And I inspected the first 2 or 3 buildings, and I noticed there was well over that just on 1 or 2 buildings. And I explained to the property manager or company or person I was speaking to, he asked me to come out and take a look. I explained to him, I said, you guys are getting the raw end of the deal on this. You know, there's a lot more damage on here. And he goes, well, we've never been through this process. Again, remind you, this was back in, early 2000s, so they'd never gone through the process. And I explained to him, I said, well, we can get the insurance company out here, take a look at it. And he's like, well, they've already been out here. And I'm like, there's such a thing as a reinspection where they can come back out and take a look at it and things like that.
And your knowledge base at that point was strictly residential, let's say.
Yeah.
So you're just magnifying what you would do for a homeowner in the same scenario, telling you an insurance adjuster's already been out. You just
multiplied on a large scale.
You duplicated it because you didn't know what else to do. So you just said, you're getting the short end of the stick here. I think you could do better. And you just jumped in with no prior experience, no mentorship, no one to guide you on how to maneuver a giant project.
Well, it kind of, I didn't just get the project. So I explained him the process, and then he said, well, the board meeting has a meeting with 7 other contractors. So they were basically doing an interview process with contractors.
Right.
And so I've never done one of those before. So I'm like, okay, I set up my interview, but I know from previous, I've been doing this for now 6 years at the time, 5-6 years at the time. And I had a commercial portfolio that I lined up, but it had basically 1 or 2 jobs in it for some churches.
Right.
A few.
HOA.
No,
there
no
was never
large
an HOA.
scale.
There was never a board.
No, but
small churches.
Exactly.
Small commercial properties that would be comparable to maybe just a few residential.
Yeah.
roofs.
So I had that all put together, but I had it all presented nicely in a
In
portfolio.
a 3-ring binder with the drop-in page protectors. I do remember working on that. Just trying to fill it with anything we could put in there to make you look more prepared.
So when they were supposed to have this meeting. So again, I've never been to one of these meetings before, and so I was invited in to be the 8th person.
Right.
At this interview process with the board and the president and the HOA and everything like that. So I showed up there, and in the waiting room there was me and 7 other contractors that were sitting in this waiting room, and it was kind of, I was a little nervous at the time. I don't know how old I was, but
young.
I was, mid-late 20s maybe.
Young, still fighting that baby face.
Yeah, and
Can't be
so I was a
taken
little bit
seriously.
nervous, but I knew if I can get in front of somebody that I know I'm good at what I do, right? So, they did names or something, and somehow I was the 5th person up or 6th person up. So the other 3 or 4 people went through, and they each did their presentation. We were allotted 15-minute presentation. So they each did their presentation. By the time I came up there, I think there was 1 or 2 people left in the interview room, and myself, and I went in and did mine, presented the portfolio, explained to them the 7-step process, explained to them how I do a scope assessment, explained to them the whole process of how I run through a job that even after the job, I'm not completed with the job. I still presented them with a maintenance agreement, explaining to them that every couple of years I'm going to come out and do a free assessment of the property, making sure everything was running smoothly and so forth. And by the time I finished, my interview lasted about 20 minutes. By the time I finished, they literally said right at the thing that they've made their decision that they were going to decide to go with me. And the HOA and the president of the association walked out into the meeting room and asked the other 2 people to leave.
I remember you telling me
They
that.
didn't even get a chance to present their interview process. And we signed everything that night. And we got everything signed. And so the next step was, as I explained them for the next 2 weeks, I was going to inspect their properties.
Right.
And again, people, just so you understand, this was back before Hover and Eagle View, and I had to, in each building, there was 39 buildings. Each building was different, a different measurement. You remember? And I had to sit on those buildings, and they were cut up and crazy, and they were 100 to 150 squares each building.
So that was no drones, no smartphones, nothing like that. That was measurements with, I call it a roly-poly, with tape measures, or what's the actual name?
Well, it was too steep. I couldn't use the rolling tape measure.
Tape measure. I called it a roly-poly. He had many because they like to dive off of roofs.
They did.
And straight drawing. So that was sketching.
Freehand sketching on top of the roof.
Sketching every roof. And then after, like on the evenings, coming home and doing proper straight draws.
With a ruler and making sure everything looks
absolutely
smart.
On paper. And those papers were like a 3 or 4 part carbon paper.
I think that's when I fell in love with my AccuLine.
Because
it helped me.
Shout out, right? Yeah. He still carries when he does boots on the ground job site training in his to-go toolkit.
Yeah.
He brings
my clipboard and my AccuLine
to
show the reps
so
how
you
to
can
measure.
Still see it. He still shows to this day sales reps how to actually measure and actually straight draw. Because true. Just because there is technology out there, which we fully acknowledge, doesn't mean that it's not a great thing to work backwards and learn the skills that made your industry what it is today. So think about that for a minute. Why not be more capable and be able to do the old-fashioned way of doing things just for the knowledge base, just for the thrill of it? And getting off track a tiny bit, but there was a time when you fought very hard with insurance adjusters for them to, I'm going to say, take you seriously because you were just young. Yeah. And at that, I don't know if at that time more so than now, but contracting and construction was an older man's game, a grown man's game, right?
Yeah.
And the older you were, automatically the more credible you seemed to homeowners.
I think it was just a maturity level.
And it could be. And so if you were to climb on it, and you had this happen to you several times with adjusters, like older, gruff adjusters who just didn't like you because you were a young buck coming up, bouncing on the roof, and they would put you in your place and challenge how much you know. And so for the young ones out there, think about something. If Dan were your insurance adjuster on a roof.
I think you're calling me old here.
No, not at all. Just a little dino right there. But if Dan were your insurance adjuster next week and he met you on a roof and you bounded up there and he wasn't even seeing hail, he was seeing blistering, he was seeing bird activity, and he wasn't in a great mood for you wasting his time, and he called you out and said to you, I'll buy this roof if you can tell me right now how many squares it is and straight draw it for me. Without any technology. I don't want your drones. I don't want your satellites. I want you to tell me within half a square or a square. I don't know, whatever. You tell me how many squares this roof is. How many of you out there could do that? How many of you could take out first of all, you'd have to have a tape measure, and you'd take it out and you would measure it, straight draw it, and sit on the peak of that roof and hand calculate.
Now you got me off on
the math. So think about that. Like, there is that possibility that you're going to get an adjuster that just decides he doesn't like you and you're wasting his time. And if he challenges your level of education and of skills in your industry, it really puts you in your place. And that happened to Dan a few times, not the straight drawing, because that's what everyone did back then, and the measurements and the math calculations, but just pointing out to you, you show me the hail, and putting Dan on the spot. And that was a hurdle that you had to overcome, partly because you were new to the industry, you were young, they probably, the minute you got out of your truck, they probably knew, like, oh, here's one, he barely knows what he's doing, or he's only worked one storm where the damage was so obvious that anyone could have sold it. But when you actually had to dig in and get the knowledge and the skills so that you could stand your ground next to someone else with years more knowledge, that was a lot of growing pains for you. So I'm sorry I got completely off tangent when we were talking about the tools.
I was going to say, now you got me on a tangent, because when I go and teach at various companies and things like that, and I go out and I do the day of training, the first thing I notice, I would say 90% of the time, is less than 10% of them walk up on top of their roof with a tape measure.
Right. They don't. A lot of
And
reps don't even have a
I
ladder.
guarantee less than 10%. If I were to ask them how many squares is this roof, they can't just look at it and eyeball it.
Right.
You know, they have to. Well, I don't know. Let me check my hover, or let me
Right.
check my Eagle View. Not to say that technology is a bad thing.
No,
I mean, it's great to help us
It's
out.
what everyone uses, and
but-
it's what the industry standard is now. But challenge yourself to go beyond falling on the crutches of modern technology. It's about becoming a master of your craft. It's about
Well, you should see the look on
improving
some of
yourself.
these adjusters' faces, especially if I've got an aged adjuster who's been doing this a long time. You should see the look on their face when instead of you handing them a hover, or instead of you handing them an Eagle, you hand them a straight draw that you've
Right.
drawn the roof. He knows instantaneously. You built the credibility with that adjuster that he knows that you know what you're
Like
doing.
you're from the day.
That you've been doing this.
Now,
Now I'm saying that most of them will take a hover and Eagle View, of course. But
let's reverse this. What happens to you now, Mr. Walrack, when you get on it now? Dan, we're in year 27. This will be 27 seasons. You've been a general contractor for nearly as many of those years licensed. You have been a licensed insurance adjuster for well over 20 years.
25
I would say, yes. And so that's where you stand. What happens today when you get on a roof with an adjuster and that adjuster has been adjusting for like 12 minutes? Like this adjuster has been on this earth less years than you have
you're
been
really
doing.
making me feel young, aren't you?
I'm just saying, okay, if you've 27, this will be your 27th season. So what happens when you climb on a roof and that adjuster's 24?
Well, it's fun. I mean, I like to get
think
on there and
about
I like
that.
to listen to the adjuster's education and the way he's been trained. You know what I mean? Because a lot of the adjusters that you meet now, a lot of them are third party and have never even gotten their adjuster's license. You know, they're
So
just
they
coming out of straight or
can-
whatever. And
They can be an adjuster without actually having their license?
well, they technically don't call it an adjuster; it's a third party. So
okay.
it's like, you know, you got different companies that have third parties out there that send them out. What I like to call them is glorified picture takers.
So at that moment, you have so much more qualifications and licensure
100%.
than that person on that roof that you're meeting. You have decades more experience and knowledge. You have literally been climbing roofs longer than they have existed on this planet. And they look you dead in the eye and try to negotiate out this roof.
They
Like, how does
try.
that
I
go?
mean, they try to negotiate a roof, but really the third party, they just tell you flat out, hey, we're not here to make any decisions. We're here to just take pictures and give them back to the insurance company and
Wow.
and go that route. And you know, at first, you know, as soon as if you have one of those on top of your roof, you just want to basically be cordial, explain to them the process. I've been doing this for such and such. It's all in my scope assessments where it's like I go up there, say, this is what I was trained in 25 years ago. This is what hail looks like. Do you agree or disagree with what we're finding? And
So you
I
tell
don't bring
you
them
show
out-
them what hail looks like?
I do. I don't bring them out. I don't
Boy,
bring them out
time
on.
has changed.
I don't bring them out on roofs that I don't think should
Right.
get approved anyway.
No, I know, absolutely.
And so if I believe it really truly should be approved,
If they're there,
then I'm going to go to bat and be the advocate for the homeowner to get it taken care of. Now,
Right.
there's going to be times where you get that guy up there that literally doesn't have any idea what he's looking at, right? And if you get that situation, then you do the best of what you got, and then you can just agree to disagree, and you can go that route and you go to the next step. But I would say 95% of the time, if I'm presenting it the right way, and I've met the adjuster on the driveway, and the homeowner and I have both discussed it. I've educated my homeowner, and we found that, you know, we painted a picture, we wrote a story of what's damaged on the property. 95% of the time, it's going to get approved on the roof,
And you
as
would-
long as you present it the right way.
and you address it differently based on who climbs out of that truck.
A
If
lot
it's
of
a
times.
seasoned insurance adjuster, an actual insurance adjuster, versus a
The process is all set.
Right.
It's just how do you because
How do you approach it?
Yeah, what people don't understand in sales is there's multiple times you're selling in a job. You're selling the homeowner, you're selling yourself, you're selling the adjuster, you're selling the process, you're selling the story, you're selling the storm. I mean, what people don't realize is you're not just going up to this door being, hey, my name's so-and-so with such and such company. I'm going to do an inspection on your property and let you know if you got any damage, and we'll meet the adjuster and go from there. Mm-hmm. You got to sell yourself before you sell anything.
Right.
You got to make sure that homeowner feels comfortable with you. And once they feel comfortable, then you go to the next process of selling. Then you're selling the inspection. Then you're selling the scope assessment. Then you're selling the process. Then you're educating your homeowner. Then you're meeting the adjuster out there. Then you're selling the adjuster. And that's why I tell people all the time. I say 90% of the time, I know if that roof's going to get approved on the driveway before we even get up on top of the roof. And the reason I know that is because I know whether or not I've sold that adjuster well enough to where that adjuster is going to basically eat out of my hand. You know what I mean? And that's the process. But I mean, we completely went off on a tangent.
I know.
We need to
We're
get.
off
Let's
topic.
get back.
I have one more question for you that popped into my head
Uh-oh.
while you were running down that big list.
Here we go.
How many times now do you get up on a roof and the insurance adjuster, or what do you call them?
Third party.
In my opinion, it should always be an insurance adjuster, but that's
Should.
a different topic on its own. How many times did they recognize you?
In the last 2 or 3 years, I've been getting a lot more. Where, well, but that's honestly that's the goal of any contractor is if you do your scope assessment and do your process right.
Right.
What you want them to do is you want them to recognize you because then they understand. Oh, I've got Dan on this file.
Right.
I know what I'm going to get. I know that he knows what he's looking at.
Right.
This is going to be a quick process and we're going to take care of right away. Whereas you just throw the spaghetti against the wall and see if it sticks. All you're doing is you're lessening your integrity with that insurance company. And now every single time they meet you out at that job site, they don't know whether or not you've got hail or you don't have hail.
Absolutely.
Is this going to be like last time, Dan, where we don't have a ding on event, or is this going to be the time before where we had quarter size hail on the event? What do we got looking up here? But as long as you stay consistent on what you know as hail damage is, and what damage or wind damage or whatever, that insurance company is going to start, and you build that integrity, that relationship with that adjuster and that insurance company, where that's how you get placed on preferred contractors lists. And
Absolutely. Contractors
recommend you to other people because the overall goal, again, I say this all the time, the overall goal of that adjuster is to close the claim. And if you can help him close the claim and with integrity and being honest and showing him exactly what he needs, that adjuster, there's not a confrontation. There shouldn't be a confrontation. It should be you working together to close that claim. And that's the process that people need to understand. I hear so many different YouTube videos and so many different things out there where people are having confrontation with adjusters, making the adjuster seem like the bad guy.
Right.
Well, what people need to understand is majority of the adjusters, all they want to do is close the claim.
Right.
It's your job to help them close it. And how do you do that? That's the process we as contractors need to work on and get better at.
Right.
And if we're all doing the same thing and we're all processing the same way and running the same gamut of how to get it approved, our close ratios will skyrocket.
And that's a topic that you've spoken about before. Yeah. We should do a whole podcast on it. You've done classes before on that, how insurance adjusters are not the enemy. And I know that you, from you starting in this industry and being able to witness that, I know you were always building a reputation where you were on preferred contractors list, preferred contractors list with insurance companies.
Still on.
And you were known within the CAT circles, the catastrophe team circles. They knew when your name was assigned to that file or your name came up that you weren't wasting their time. And that it was.
Well, they knew what to expect.
It was a credible appointment, that you weren't out there to waste their time, that you were an equal in the industry at a minimum, and your integrity is always on the line with every roof that you're walking onto, showing value and respect to the homeowner and also to the insurance adjuster and yourself, truly. So I know you always built that. It's just been interesting in the last handful of years how many times you come home and you talk about the adjuster recognized you as a trainer.
Was it last year I showed you the picture of us doing the pose on the roof?
It was a State Farm adjuster who needed to remain anonymous, but he recognized you from your trainings, your videos, your everything in the industry, and he commented about it, about how you clearly have more years in, and you train contractors on doing this very thing, and yet he was assigned to meet with you to approve one of your proofs.
He wanted to say thank you because he knows that I preach out there that we're not here to argue. Right. We're here to close the claim.
Right. And not waste anyone's time and be respectful. And I just found it interesting. You did get a picture. We couldn't share it. It was
he asked if we could get a picture doing the pose.
Right. But it wasn't something that we could post publicly just because of course we don't want him to lose his job or anything, but that there was a lot of mutual respect. And I just find it comical now when you come home and you're like, the adjuster knew me in the industry from social media and from what I do, and so it really isn't much of a challenge or an argument anymore. More of like hey, I've seen you before. You train a lot of contractors. So I'm going to buy this roof. Yes.
That's how it happens sometimes.
Yes, you are going to buy this roof. Okay, we went so off topic. We're not even anywhere near talking about you learning how to talk to engineers, HOAs, board meetings, that sort of a thing. But I think it was still a lot of information that we put out there.
Yeah, and so just to go back to what we were talking about. So after I got the signature on the contract to do the work.
Oh, you're going back. We're going back to this topic.
Yeah, we're going back to the topic.
Do it.
Unless you want to start it for the next podcast.
Well, no. Let's go.
All right. Well, so we're going back to the topic.
So it took you 2 weeks roughly to straight draw and measure each unit. Each building had to be done on its own. Mm-hmm. So you spent weeks out there, me packing you lunches, and you're not making any money. You're just out there for
days.
Weeks, climbing all of the roofs and measuring every single one of them by hand.
Yep. There was 39 different units or complexes, and I had to measure each complex. They had multiple valleys and multiple open cornices and things like that where I had to measure. And again, we had to straight draw them, and then I had to put them. We put them in a portfolio, put a whole packet together.
I might still have the binder.
Well, we put it all together.
I might have to dig in a file cabinet at home because I think I kept from all of the commercial properties that you did. We put them in binders because everything was on paper at that point. And I believe just out of I think I have one commercial property binder still in existence.
Well,
I should see if I could find it.
I know that when we did that, then we had to fax it all over to the...
Fax.
Yeah, we had to fax it all over to the adjuster in Wausau. And then once he got that, it was a large-scale loss. So the issue we had back then, and something that I learned now that I didn't know back then, is the adjuster at the time, they didn't have enough in the reserves from the insurance company. So that's why they sent the initial adjuster out there. And the initial adjuster was an independent adjuster that was very... let's say not schooled, so he didn't have the authority to write it for a large loss.
Okay.
So at the beginning, if I would have been with them at the beginning, I would have sent in my reserves to get it as a large loss, so I would have had a large loss adjuster or somebody that could have handled that claim from the get-go.
But you didn't know that either?
I wasn't with.
Okay.
Number one, I wasn't with the first adjuster. He did it by himself.
Right.
But secondly, I didn't understand that process because it was something that was new to me.
Okay.
And now I understand it.
Does it still exist now?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. You got to get to a large... Well, the one I did up in St. Paul, we went instantly
Well, there's a lot of people,
loss.
and maybe we just go there right now. A lot of people that don't know what happens if I do get an HOA or something like that. So what are you talking about?
The first thing you should do when you get a large loss like that is you should make sure that there's plenty of reserves in the funds to get it taken care of.
Okay.
To make sure that it's assigned to the proper adjuster. Because the last thing
are you listening to
the
this,
last
everyone?
thing you want to do is you don't want a $1 million project and have an adjuster comes out that can only write for $80,000.
Okay.
Because the problem is...
So they have limits.
So they're going to have limits. So you're
Okay.
basically wasting your time. They're coming out here to write for an adjuster or to inspect a property, and they can't write for that big of a loss.
Okay.
So what they're going to do is you're wasting your time because they're going to contact a large loss person or they're going to contact an engineer or something like that to come out and inspect the property because they can't write for it anyway.
Okay.
So you're wasting your time. So as long as you put the reserves in and you put the request in for a large loss at the front end,
okay,
you're going to get somebody that can make those decisions.
So lesson learned on you because this was your first one.
Yeah. So,
okay.
Well, I didn't meet the first adjuster, so it really wasn't mine. So the next thing I got, we sent everything to the adjuster or the insurance company, and like I said, they had like 39 buildings, and they paid a total $40,000 to start, and that was some gutters, downspouts.
Per building or total?
Total.
Okay.
Miscellaneous things on the building, some hits here.
Now
and
these
there.
are like 2006 numbers, and they are Wisconsin numbers.
Yep. So they paid miscellaneous stuff and things like that, and I found a lot more damage. And so as soon as we put in for full approval on the roofs, full approval on the gutters, some chimney work, different odds and ends. And as soon as we put those into the insurance company, got a call back, within 3 days, and they set up an engineering appointment. So that was my first experience I ever got to meet with Hag.
I remember you were so nervous.
Yeah, it was the first.
So nervous.
That was my first large loss that I had to meet with an engineering firm.
The most nervous I've ever seen him ever. The night before, he was just pacing, and it was very intimidating. Just that word engineer, and knowing you were just a roofer, in air quotes, and you were meeting an engineer. You were so You were
I
so
didn't,
scared.
I didn't know what to expect. I mean, I've met
Right.
adjusters, I've met re-inspectors, I've met closed-down adjusters. I've met other engineers, but never on a project of this magnitude, right? And I've never met an engineer where they're literally flying them in from Texas, let alone an engineering firm that we've all grown up and known as Hague Engineering.
Right.
That's like the protocol that we all are supposed to follow,
That's very
right?
intimidating.
And so I'm getting pretty much one of the owners and developers of Hague Engineering is coming up to inspect these properties.
And you are a young buck.
And so we
making your way.
So we meet out there. He's scheduled to meet out there for, I think he scheduled 6 days or 7 days to see all the buildings. And I did my same process I do always with insurance adjusters I did with the engineer. Although meeting an engineer, obviously they're contracted, they're getting paid by the insurance company.
Right. So they're
they're inspecting these properties on the insurance company's behalf. They're not my behalf.
Right.
Right.
So they don't want to.
No.
They don't want to spend the money. They don't want to buy it.
Their goal is not to find the damage.
Right.
Right.
Yes.
But they can say they're independent, but they're not. And so I met this.
Someone pays them.
Yeah, I met this the engineer out there, and we walked around the property, and I painted the picture, showed him what we had as far as the hail damage to the downspouts, the gutters, things like that, and it was all consistent with quarter to 50-cent piece size hail, so it was there. And then we got him up on the building, and I had my at the time, we didn't know any better, so at the time I had all my test squares drawn out, right? And he went up the first building we went on. He went to the test squares, didn't say a word, took the pictures, and then literally 1 foot over from my test square, he drew his own test squares.
That's
and
an ego hit, isn't it?
Oh goodness, here we go,
Yep.
right? And honestly, what I felt, because I did test squares on 39 buildings.
Because you used to always. That was the standard at one point. You always did test squares. You had them ready to go.
I think the reason that this industry has got away from doing test squares is because the integrity or the education that sales reps are having aren't qualified enough to do test squares because a lot of them don't know what hail looks like.
They're circling blisters. They're
Exactly.
circling
so
cosmetic
that's what
damage,
So that's
scarring.
what we kind of looked. So we went up on the roof, and he did his 4 test squares right next to, literally, and I would say a foot away from my test squares. But he looked at my test squares and took pictures and things like that, then his own test squares. And I want to say that first building, I'm thinking we're out here in 8 days. I want to say that first building took us 2.5 hours. And I'm looking at 39 or 38 other buildings going, oh my goodness, we're going to be here a while.
We're going to be here
right?
for weeks.
And it was, at the time, he's wearing
Right.
this wide brim hat. I'm not going to throw out his name, but
Nope.
he'll know. I don't even know if he's doing it anymore. He's wearing the wide brim hat with Hague Engineering. And if I said that right there, everybody knows who I'm talking about. But it was 90 plus degrees out. It was hot as you know what. We're up on top of these roof on an 812, 912, burning our calves. And I handed him over my straight draws, which he did love those.
Sure.
And so it took us about 2.5 hours on the first building. We got done. We climbed up on the second building.
And do you know at that point if he's happy or not?
He didn't say a word yet.
Right. You know nothing.
So we got up on the second
know
building,
nothing.
and I'm doing small talk, trying to feel him out, walked around, do all that. Got on the second building. Did my test square. My test squares were done. Again, he went a foot over. Did his test squares. And at the time, as an engineer, he would actually underline or circle hail. So, I mean, I knew he was finding some hail up there, right? The first building, I had 8 to 10 hits, 12 hits in a square. He was at 6 to 8, right? So it was just underneath what I have, but so be it. Next building, same thing. By the time we got to the third building, he started loosening up because I think what happened is he started to understand that I knew what I was looking at. Right, that I've been through Hague Engineering. I went through the training classes at Hague. I'm a licensed adjuster. I went through that process. By the third building, I explained to him that I've got my adjuster's license. I've had it for 5 years. This is all the stuff I've been trained in on. I had my Hague protocol with me, my belt, and I started selling the engineer on these roofs about, hey, here's the process of how I was trained. And so by the time we got to that fourth thing, he started using my test squares, and then he started underlining my hail hits, taking pictures. And then we went to the fifth one. And so that was 3/4 of the first day. We're on our fifth building. We got 39 left. And 34 left. And
math.
Finally, he's using my test squares, doing everything. And then I'll never forget, it was about 4 o'clock in the evening. And we're in our second shirt. We've got towels. We're supposed to sit up on top of the ridge. He makes a phone call to the insurance company, talks to the desk adjuster that's on the claim, and said, hey, we've completed with 5 buildings. Dan's consistent on what he believes is hail. I agree with him. Also, do you want me to continue and do the other 34? Do you want me? Because you got to understand, the insurance company was paying him to be there.
Right. A lot of money.
A lot of money.
A lot of money.
And so he asked that insurance company, we can do the other 34.
Right.
Or I can be done now and you can just agree upon what Dan has.
Right.
And it was a pause. And then, remember, these were those old phones, right? And then I heard the insurance adjuster say, do you agree upon all the extras like gutters and stuff? And he goes, Dan's scope assessment is to a T. He's got everything. And then that adjuster on the desk says, all right, I appreciate your time. We're going to work out the rest with the contractor.
Bam.
And then that's how it happened. So we went from a $40,000 job that was for 39 buildings to it ended up being $1.7 million.
In like 2006.
In 2006,
let's say.
Yep.
So that's pretty incredible.
So that's how my first HOA ever happened with an engineer. Now, understand, anybody watching this, not all engineers are like that. Right?
But you had a great first experience.
But it was a great first experience, and I've done other engineer appointments down in Madison that went phenomenal. It wasn't with Haig. I think I've only met Haig on 3 that I've ever been on, and all 3 have been approved. But I mean,
well, like they did train you.
That's how I went and got my licensing. So
right.
But anyway, so that's how the first engineering appointment went.
And I think that was a huge pivotal moment for us and for our company because of the confidence and the growth and the strength. And that opened up the doors to other properties with HOAs, other larger community properties. And then building up that commercial portfolio for additional churches and city-owned property, state-owned property.
And I built that trust and that relationship with that property management company.
Yes.
And to this day, I'm still doing projects for them.
To this day, that is a true fact.
I mean, it's 20 years now that I've been working with this property management company.
Dan's phone number has never changed, which is important. Now we have talked about phone numbers down there. So he at the time had a Madison phone number, but for moments like that, which it doesn't occur anymore, you just have one phone number. He had most certainly given both business cards, where this is my Minnesota market business card. Here's my Wisconsin market business card. So they've always been able to contact him. And to this day, you are still in the process and have been over the last few years of working on.
I'm working on 4 with them down there right now.
The same contacts. So that goes to say that treating people correctly, bringing integrity into what you do.
And just being honest.
And being honest, you are playing, like you say, the long game. And you are looking to not only help them with their roof today, but their roof in 15 years, in 20 years. You want to be their roofing contractor, their siding contractor for as long as they want those services. And I think keeping that mindset about being a good human and about just acting with integrity, that's what we're trying to do, is make a difference in this industry and to leave it better than how we found it 27 years ago. So I think this is a great stopping point for us today.
Yep.
I think you threw a lot of information out there, and maybe we need to do more information where you're walking people through how to bite off a project like that. Like how do you
how to go A to Z
approach it, right? Like how do you bite off a huge, massive project like that and survive it and maneuver through it well and gracefully and honorably?
I appreciate everybody for joining us here.
Yeah.
And always remember,
be a good human.
Be a good human, not just a headline in your mind.